The Sri Lanka Insurance, where I'm sitting in the board, current administration decided to have cross-industry people into the board. So they invited some legal person, audit background person, and an accountant, and me as a IT guy. So when I get into the board, so first I did was just went to the IT department and checked the entire structure of the IT department. So it's in the history, there won't be any connection between the IT industry and the board of directors. The guy who was heading the IT CIO, he's taking decision by himself. He's presenting board papers or the various initiatives, but it won't go to the board level. The reason behind that is board can't understand. There's no IT guy in the board. So they were struggling to implement a core system, a general insurance system, and a life core system for the last 10 years. So they were talking to vendors, they get the pricing, tender procedures, then when it's come to the board level, they have already rejected. So then my first job was, actually I'm fortunate, I got a good team in my board, from the chairman downwards, all supportive. I completely changed the structure of the department. The CIO I changed to Digital Transformation Officer, name change. I recruited, the IT security was zero. So first I recruited a security guy, then another second in command to Digital Transformation Officer. And then we started. Now, at the moment, now we managed to get general core system, and we are implementing in next month. Even the live, all the tender procedures, everything is completed. In April, we are going to implement that. Top of that, we are trying to get some KYC and post systems and chatbots, sort of AI-based add-ons to that. Because whenever you get some core systems, but you need real add-ons or plugins to work with. So insurers mainly go on AI-based. So then we have selected many AI-based third-party softwares, and so we are in process of doing it. For the last 5 months of periods, we managed to turn around the entire Sri Lanka insurance IT. The reason is the board support and the staff support. We can put it together. Like say, earlier main problem, obstacle they had was when they come up with like say some sort of a, when they were to buy a hardware even, so this go to board level, sometimes board say that it's too expensive. So not at the moment, right? So they're rejecting. So then we go to, there's no proper voice in the board to go for technology or whatever the initiatives. So, but now currently we are basically, we are on track. But again, we have to say that now within the staff or the department, there are so many vendor loyalties. So there are so many subscriptions, annual maintenance. They are trying to stick into one or two vendors. So the prices are huge. I mean, when you compare some other vendors, the real quotations are more than 100% high. So those are the areas that if you have a direct representative from the board, so those are the areas we have to look into. Yeah. So now Sri Lanka Insurance, I feel that now we are in the correct track. By end of this year, we know that definitely one of the best IT services insurance company in Sri Lanka. So, but the only my fear is they have enough funds to invest, but at the moment, but if changes, administration change, or the board of directors changes, can complete the other round. But at the moment, we are in a correct track.
Thank you, Kithsiri. I'll come back to you on why, asking question why the public sector is lagging behind. We'll come to that later. But Ruvini, taking on from Kithsiri, he was talking about a possibility of having one board member possibly is adequate, but there is this concept of wanting to have an adequate debate at even a board level to determine make good decisions on IT. And also, Kithsiri also mentioned about the fact that there is a tendency to rely on the IT executives and has always this issue of wondering whether the comfort level around that sometimes is not great. So I just want to understand from you again around the board composition. Do you see sort of a requirement for a greater number of board directors in relation to technology, and having to rely on, if you don't have the reliance on IT executives, will too much, you will have to, it is over reliance on IT executives, whether that's going to cause risk for corporates.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors for inviting me. A very topical and interesting discussion that we're having today. So around your question, Arjuna, on the board composition, I think, yes, it is vital to have more board members who are IT savvy. So necessarily at the board level, it may not be present in the first instance as you start off on this journey. And typically what I understand is that boards could also have subcommittees where they can co-opt from outside IT experts. So that's perhaps one mechanism through which that can be done. And really, if you look at Sri Lanka today, we have a very thriving IT industry, which is doing good things out there. And, it's one of the key export earners for Sri Lanka. So we are not lacking in people who are IT savvy. It's just that in the traditional organizations, we may not have that savviness, but there would be people in the business community who have that exposure, who are actually developing maybe very innovative IT products for people outside of Sri Lanka, right? Whom we could actually draw into our boards, into subcommittees, into advisory committees to supplement the expertise that the board has and to enable it to look at some of the emerging trends. Speaking of risk, I think one of the board's key roles is to look at the risks in the environment that will affect its business model. So the role of IT becomes critical in that. We talk about disruption often when we talk about IT, and you will have in every industry in different ways disruptors who come and change the face of the industry and kind of leapfrog into new areas of profitability. It may be in ways in which you serve the customer, or ways in which you, for example, manage costs or manage processes and make them more efficient, do like huge cost savings, or find new ways of serving the customer in a cheaper manner. So given all that, the board's role in assessing outside risks, and if our company, if your own company does not adopt or change along with those trends, what would be the risk that you're exposed to? Over-reliance on management looks like it has been a trend. It's coming out from the findings of your report. Management reliance is good because I think, again, when you look at tech savviness, if the board does not have adequate savviness, I'm sure the management will bring in that tech savviness. Nevertheless, to balance the interaction between management and board and to ensure better governance, I think board should also look at bringing in those external resources to supplement and have that healthy debate with the management on what is best.
Sure. So my next question to you, subsequently in the next round, would be, we saw in that other category saying that they are not challenged, even though their best practice IT governance is not in place. They don't feel that challenge, and possibly that has been complemented by good technology people in the board. But we'll come to that question subsequently. So Anoop, you heard from Professor Malik and Kithsiri both about the value proposition. He talked about Sampath Bank when the investments came, huge amounts. That's the time he thought, no, we need to have better board IT governance. Otherwise, we are running huge budgets around this. We heard about Kithsiri saying, wanting at Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, getting the core system in place, this whole value proposition of that. And also you saw in the survey, where survey indicates that the board's IT experience seems that it facilitates better board IT governance. And in turn, there seems to be better ROI in companies. So can you shed some lights around all this value proposition and increase profitability as a result of better board IT governance?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Is mic on? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a strong correlation undoubtedly between IT governance, the board's IT expertise, and the performance of the company. Like we saw in your survey, 30% improvement in rather higher performance with companies having better IT governance. That's a very clear indicator, right? So obviously it's the case. Definitely. So what we find is, in the past, maybe from value proposition standpoint, I would subscribe to your survey again. The stage was stage 5 on the maturity curve, which we saw, right, wherein the involvement of the board is much higher from an initial stage itself, not as an afterthought. I mean, probably in the previous generation of previous years, we have seen that in some cases the board probably has delegated the decision IT to somebody else, to management level. But now with the advent of technologies like, especially disruptive technology like IoT, machine learning, cloud coming in, board now is definitely aware of the fact that, yeah, I think IT has a huge prominence in the way things work. And I think to add to, points mentioned by you before, we're also seeing, it's a trend again, hope to see this more, finding more CIOs and CTOs on company boards as well. I mean, that is a ready-made, rather readily available talent the board can acquire. The person has a deep understanding of IT as well as technology, as a business. The likes of Airtel, for example, in mobility space, ING Vaisya, now part of Kotak, and other one popular retail chain as well. The CIOs are on the company boards. It's a clear indication that board is very serious about having IT expertise at a much higher level because they do recognize the need to improve performance on that basis.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very quickly, maybe a sort of another question for each one of you. To start with, Professor Malik, do you subscribe to the sort of the finding that we have in the survey that board IT governance is less effective than overall broad governance? And any thoughts around that? Yeah, if you don't mind, you'll have to hold your mic closer.
I'll take that question up that seems to be key about having at least 3 members on the board.
Yes, please.
I think having one person who knows IT well with a few others who are savvy in IT, because you can't have 3 who are IT guys and then meet all the other requirements. You need the accountants, you need the finance. So while you would like, ITP would like to say we need 3 of them, I think one with 2 or 3 others who are savvy in IT would be fine. Because they can support and work with the specialist. On the next question that you raised, it's a difficult one, but I think one of the reasons, in my opinion, one of the reasons that corporate governance is catching root or is doing well here is this best practices book that is published by the Institute of Chartered Accountants. A lot of boards do look at it, or board members do look at it. It has become like a thing that you give with the initiation process. The board pack comes with that, telling you what to know. Maybe taking it forward. What SLID could do is taking from this survey, develop a set of best practices, which becomes across the board. Everybody would look at it. So you have looked at some of the best in class. There are a few suggestions. But a broader group, if they can work together and come up with what you would consider to be best practices in ITG, then you would find ITG taking a better route, becoming more important, people understanding it better. Because I think that from the chartered institutes, that book is very useful. The best practices, I think a lot of people look at it, even if you're not an accountant, you'll start learning what's required. So in that context, I think SLID can take as a next step to this, to build up